Let's talk about myths as it relates to the Americans with Disabilities Act. Myth number 1. An employee who has a chronic illness is covered by the ADA. According to the EEOC's website, to be protected under the ADA, you must have a record of or be regarded as having a substantial as opposed to a minor impairment. A substantial impairment is one that significantly limits or restricts a major life activity such as hearing, seeing, speaking, walking, breathing, performing manual tasks, caring for oneself, learning, or working. Myth number 2. If an employee has a disability and has the education and experience for the position, the ADA will protect that employee and that employee cannot be fired. The employee must be able to perform the essential functions or duties of the job with or without reasonable accommodation in order to be protected from job discrimination. So if the employee meets the qualifications of the job, they've got the right education and experience, but they are unable to perform those essential job functions with or without the reasonable accommodation, then that employee, just like any other employee, can be terminated. And they can be terminated not because of the disability, but it will be due to poor job performance. Myth number 3. Employers have to figure out a way to accommodate an employee with a disability. Let's review some of the EEOC's examples of reasonable accommodation. Providing or modifying equipment or devices. Job restructuring. Part-time or modified work schedules. Reassignment to a vacant position. Adjusting or modifying examinations, training materials, or policies. Providing readers and interpreters. Making the workplace readily accessible to and usable by people with disabilities. With all of that being said, if the employer can demonstrate that the reasonable accommodation would cause undue hardship to the business, meaning significant difficulty or expense, then that employer under the ADA is not required to provide reasonable accommodation. Myth number 4. The ADA laws are enforced on employers with as few as 5 employees. All employers, and that includes state and local governments, with 15 or more employees are expected to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. Here's a side note. Let's say your company downloads an employee handbook template off of a website and you run with it. Your company has less than 15 employees. In the state of Texas, if your employee handbook says that you abide by the Americans with Disabilities Act, even though you only have less than 15 employees, you must abide by the Americans with Disabilities Act. Whatever your employee handbook states, that is what you must abide by. So I recommend all small businesses with 15 or less employees to review your employee handbook and ensure that you don't have any type of guidelines or laws in there that you do not meet the employee threshold. Myth number 5. If during an interview an applicant has a noticeable disability, an employer can ask about that disability and the severity of the disability. You can't do that as an employer. But here's what you can do. Employers are able to ask if the applicant can perform the duties of the job with or without reasonable accommodation. Employers can also ask applicants to describe or demonstrate how, with or without accommodation, the applicant will perform the duties of the job. Myth number 6. Employers can require an applicant to take a medical exam prior to offering the job. Employers can't do that, but there are other things that you can do to determine if the applicant is qualified to perform the essential job duties. Myth number 7. An employer cannot terminate an employee who is protected under the ADA and is found to be using medical marijuana. According to the EEOC, as of the time of this video post, federal law does not recognize marijuana or medical marijuana as a legal drug. Because of this, medical marijuana users are not protected under the ADA. Medical marijuana users can be denied employment or terminated on the basis of such use. Please note, the ADA does not stop employers from testing applicants or employees for current illegal drug use. Myth number 8. Employers are required to provide health insurance coverage that includes pre-existing conditions. No, the ADA only requires that an employer provide employees with disabilities equal access to whatever health insurance coverage is offered to other employees. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be a lawyer. I'm not trying to be a lawyer. If you have any questions about an applicant or an employee as it relates to the Americans with Disabilities Act, please contact your licensed employment attorney. Thanks for watching. If you want to know more about business operations, business management, human resources, and other topics related to running a business, click on one of those play links. Click on one of these click on the playlist.
One eternity later.
Click on one of these playlists. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe.